Thank you for joining us today at Miniature Wargaming Labs, where we're going to discuss Aristeia. My name is James.
And I'm Brian.
So, Brian, let's lead into this.
All right.
Who made this game?
It's a Spanish game company called Corvus Belli. We might have mentioned them a couple times because they also make Infinity.
So is this an expansion of Infinity? Is this the same models of Infinity?
It's...
What's the theme of the game? Am I playing a board game?
So
version?
it's based in the world of Infinity. In Infinity, TV is still happening and it's very popular. And so Aristeia is the most popular sports show. It's an arena combat game where you have a grid and each person controls a team of characters with special abilities and are playing against each other in a game. It can be anything from score a goal to control this area. Really depends on what you're playing. But it's supposed to be an emulation of the ultimate sports show, Aristeia.
So I see this box in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to play the game?
So the base game, if you buy the base box for $79.99, you probably find it for other prices elsewhere. But everything you need to comes in the box. Everything you need to play comes in the box. You'll get 8 characters, each of them being able to interchange into different squads. You'll get every token you'll need. You'll get a rule book. You'll get a background. You'll get a character background with bios and fluff or story to give you a little bit to get you into the world. There's dice. There's the game board, the cards that you need. Everything you need to start playing is in here. Now, there are other expansions that you can expand the game with, but if you just wanted a simple way to get into Aristeia, you just grab a box.
All right. So who should play this game? What itch does this scratch in the gamer universe?
This is a fun game for people that want to either step into miniature gaming and don't want to get all the proponents that you need for a miniature game, especially with Infinity. It's a great stepping stone into Infinity, where you get the taste of the world, a taste of the miniatures, a taste of some of the rules. It's a little less rules heavy than Infinity. Or if you're into those hardcore games like Infinity, it's a step away from it while still having a toe in the water. So it's a self-contained board game. You don't have to worry about having terrain. You don't have to worry about line of sight. You don't have to worry about miniatures being painted, although they do come unpainted, and it is encouraged that they are painted because that's a fun hobby. But if you're not into painting, you don't have to have them painted. But it's just a simple way to get in or away from the harder rule sets, the more crunchy rule sets.
Well, how? So let's talk about what is the crunch factor on this game. How does the mechanics work on this?
It's so the mechanics. So you built it. So there's a couple components to it. The first one is you choose characters. You'll start with 4 different characters in your squad. Each one has its own card sets. Now you'll choose 2 of those card sets and build a deck off of those cards. So you kind of have to have a feeling for deck building because those cards will help you in the game. The second part is building your squad based off of the abilities that they have and the synergy that they have together. So you have your tanks, you have your healers, you have your DPSs, which is damage per second, which means those are your damage dealers. You have your scores, so they're the fast, but can take a couple hits. If you play like competitive video games like PUBG or other games like that, this is a perfect game for you because it combines that kind of game style onto the board. But so that's the second part, and then the third part is actually getting it onto the board and playing, which changes as you go. As for crunch, those are the 2 biggest things: is just building, knowing the abilities and the synergies that you have, and the deck building. Which the deck building is hard. Everyone starts with the same deck, and then you just add 8 cards to it.
All right. So what are some of the unique features of this game? Because we've seen a lot of movement into that hybrid miniature wargaming, board gaming, which is why we talk about it. But what's unique about this one?
So this one is really cool where like a lot of other ones you have one side. So a lot of people compare this to the Warhammer one, the Underworlds. It's set up in the same fashion where you build a deck, you have a squad, it's on a hex-based board. But with this one, where instead of you have a team that you buy out of a box, and that's the team that you have, this one is you choose the characters. So I could play one character in a squad that you have as well. So all of these you could interchange all the time, which is awesome because you have all this interchangeability with tactics and abilities and cards. But what really brings it out is the ability to be a very tight competitive game. This is a perfect game for tournaments. I mean, that's what it's set up to be. It's a sports show, so it is set up to be a sports game.
Okay, so we've seen that's kind of the specialty of Corvus Belli.
Yes,
the tournament specific game. All right, now let's talk about, is there a campaign system? So can we play this over multiple weeks? Is this something with scenarios? How does the campaign scenario interaction
So
work?
you can set up a scenario. There is no specific scenario set up for Aristeia, but it does lend itself to a season. So more of like a football season where you have a regular season, then you have playoffs, and then you have the championship. There's also, in the earlier versions of this game, there was sponsors. So you could be fighting for sponsorship depending on how you play. It's really, there is no like set up way to do a campaign, but it does lend itself to a sports campaign system.
So let me ask you, since we're playing on TV,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some people that enjoy the Hunger Games, is this just a board game version of the Hunger Games? Does it feel like that?
It definitely can. So it's set up to be 2 players each. So like one player versus one player. But I've played in games where each player takes one character, and we, instead of having a deck, we just have their 4 cards. So you're relying on that one character's special abilities to get you through. Now, it does get really unbalanced in that sense because some of the characters are support characters and can't deal a lot of damage. Some of them are tanks and are slow, so you'll be taking a lot of damage, but you won't be able to get to the fray quickly. But you can definitely do a Hunger Games style game, which is a lot of fun. And if you are in the Infinity crowd and you do have Aristeia players, it is definitely something that has come up before, because every Aristeia player wants to do that. So you definitely can do that.
So what would you say this game is missing right now?
So this is just the base game. The game has already had 2 years of expansions come out already, and 2 to 3 years of expansions come out already, and has fully flushed out the game. And one of the big things that I thought was missing is the board. The board has 2 sides to it. One of the sides was set up in a way that all the missions were on that side. And there wasn't any way to change how it looked. So there's certain barriers, like you can't see through this spot. Like you can't step on this spot, and it couldn't change. So that kind of took away from the way you can play. Recently, they released a new game mat, which switches that up so that there's other ways to play, other games to set up. So really, there were some balancing issues with some of the characters, which they've released characters that balance them out. They've really fleshed this out to be a really tight game. But I would love an organized system for a season, which would be really good. That's what I think is missing, is a way to play through the season.
Do do you think it's too late to get into this game? So if I just found out about Aristeia, you've already said there's 2 years of expansions. Is it too late for me?
Not at all.
So
Not at all.
Okay.
You grab this game. A lot of the expansions now. I have every single expansion, but it's really open to what you want to play. With there being already 3 years into this game, you could do your research instead of just buying everything like I did. You'd be like, oh, I want to build my team to be more quicker and be able to do damage from far away. You could do your research and buy those characters that do that, rather than buying every single one and just trying to figure out everybody's system, which is a lot of work. But there's also there's a lot of more openness to it. But no, if you're just wanting to get into this, grab the base game and you'll have everything you need to play with 2 players.
So where would you hope that this game goes since it's been out for so long? Is there any room left? Any gas in the tank still?
There is. That's the thing with this system, is that they can keep pumping out characters and game boards and game system and different missions that every time you play is completely different. I thought the first year they released tons and tons of characters. Each pack was 4 different characters, and I was like, where are they going to go? And they started releasing 2 characters and started focusing on smaller stuff. So they just released a pack of cards that replaces your deck for more competitive play, which I thought brought it into a new light, which made it even more competitive from what it was, but still very balanced. One thing Corvus Belli does really well is that it's balanced, so I feel like whatever they go through in the future is going to be just as well thought out as it is now. So I just hope they continue with it.
All right, so let's close out with our favorite 2 last questions.
All right.
We'll get to the meat of this discussion at the end of the show. So let's say, why should you play this game?
If you like a fast-paced sports game that doesn't include any sports balls, this is definitely a game to go to. This is if you like combat arena games with a set parameter and a set way to play, this is definitely a lot of fun, and it is definitely fast and can be rules light.
All right, so devil's advocacy right here. Why shouldn't you play this game? Pump up the negatives.
If you're looking for a more expansive game that includes miniatures, and if you're looking for a cheaper option, I mean, the base game is $80, and there's a lot of collector's edition stuff to it, and there's a lot of things already released for it. So if you're not looking for a game that you have to collect a lot, or feel like you have to collect a lot for it, because you don't have to collect everything for this game, trust me. But if you're like me, you'll grab everything, because I have everything. So if you don't want that collector's urge, I would stay away from this game.
Why wouldn't you buy everything, Brian? That's my approach to life.
That is,
buy all the minis.
I mean, I have everything, so obviously I don't adhere to that.
All right, well, I think that covers us today on our discussion of Aristeia. Thank you for joining us at Miniature Wargaming's Lab. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.